Hello.
Hello.
And as usual, we're back in the Avalon Orchard. It's a lovely evening in Glastonbury tonight, and because of that we thought we better tuck ourselves out of the way so that we don't get tourist interruptions as we did on the last video. Hence the reason we're stuck in a rather nettly corner of Avalon Orchard.
Yes, and it doesn't look as bright as it really is. Yeah,
we're in the shadow, really, aren't we? The sun's setting on the other side of the Tor, so we're in the shadow. But trust us, it is a nice evening. We're actually on the very last day of the runic half month of the rune Othala, which is its Shamanic name. It's known as Odal in Old Norse and Ethel in Anglo-Saxon. I always wonder, is that where the name Ethel comes from?
Yeah, as you said Ethel, I thought, oh, that's that, really old-fashioned name.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah. So Othala came into the peak of its, came into its runic half month on the 29th of May. And runs through to today, the 13th of June, and it peaked around the 5th, 6th of June, which I can always remember because my dad and my brother have both got their birthdays on the 5th of June. So we're moving towards the most southern point on the wheel now. We're not far now from the summer solstice. And this rune, and if you look at it, the wheel is a clock, we're at 11 AM, so we're just moving towards midday now. Now this is the 23rd rune in the Futhark, although sometimes it's shown in the 24th position. Depending upon which rune row you look at, it is sometimes shown as the last rune. However, I feel that Dargar's is the rune which comes in that position, so I'm sticking with this. So I'm going to read the rune poem to you to begin with, and it goes like this. An estate is very dear to every man, if he can enjoy there in his house whatever is right and proper in constant prosperity. So this is a rune of home, of land, of family, of ancestors. There's an old Frisian word, Ian Erd, which means own land or own earth. And really this phrase kind of sums up a lot of the energy of this rune. So it's a rune of inheritance. And in old Nordic society, the farm would have been seen as being very central to society. But I was thinking about this as I walked up here tonight. Really, in most societies in this country, right up until the Industrial Revolution, the farm would have been central to so many people's lives. And really, as soon as our ancestors stopped being hunter-gatherers and actually settled down, land became very important. Having your own land to farm, to live on, to bring you the food and sustenance that you needed. So this is very much behind this rune, this association with your own land. And there's something known as the Rite of Odal, which still operates in Norway to this day, known as Odalsrett. And this is all about inheritance and a farm being passed down to the eldest son. So I'm really glad that this doesn't operate in this country, as my dad has a farm and I have a brother. So yeah, luckily not in the UK, but it still operates in Norway. And there's actually, as part of this Odalsrett, if a farm is sold outside of the family to somebody who's effectively not part of that family, a stranger, then members of the family actually have the right to buy that farm back. For a period, currently it's around 10 years after the farm's been sold, they have the right to buy that farm back for the cost that was paid for it, plus the cost of any improvements. So there's this real feeling to do with this rune about keeping things within the family, of that inheritance of passing down what you have gathered in this life to your not your ancestors, to your, what's the word? Predecessors? Is that the no? That comes before, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway, brain blankage, or whatever it's called, your offspring. Descendants. That's the one. Right, sorry, we've all gone a bit dim tonight. You know what we mean. So as I said, ancestors, this is the rune of ancestors, and thinking about when our ancestors stopped being hunter-gatherers and did settle. This is when we find the first long barrows, like the Neolithic long barrows, and that's where the bones of the ancestors were put, and this all is connected with ancestor cults. And these places were not just tombs, but were also temples, were places where worship and magic happened. And also, in a way, you can kind of see them as markers. This land belongs to this clan, and that's where our ancestors are. Their bones are part of the soil, and so this rune is very much connected with ancestors and with family, and with knowing your roots and recognizing your roots. So I'm just going to show you the shape of the rune now, and there it is. So you can see the shape of the rune. It looks very much like the rune we were talking about last time, Ing or Ingwars, supported by Gabo. So as we said that Ingwars is about, one of the aspects of it is about DNA. So, and Gabo is connected with gifts. This can be seen as a gift of Ing, so this isn't just about material possessions passed down to your descendants, got it this time. This is about genetic material, so
gift of the ancestors,
in
a way. Quite literally, isn't it? Really,
it is. So everything from how tall you are, how big your bum is, what colour your eyes are, all of those things that we inherit from our ancestors, and also qualities and traits. These are all gifts. These are things passed down to us by our ancestors. So I just want to tell you, I really feel that the energies of this rune have been really strong during this runic half month. It all started for me, I can see it both on a personal level and on a wider level within our society. It all started on the 29th, which was the first day of this runic half month, and I actually travelled back to my homelands, back to East Anglia, to stay with my family on the family farm, and I can actually trace my father's ancestors back to 1605 within that area. They've hardly moved at all. So this really is kind of, that is my roots. That is the land of my ancestors. And so I stayed with my family, and I actually went out with my dad, who's a farmer, as I've said, in his van. We were looking for some places to take photos from some artwork I want to do. And when we were out there, we happened to meet another farmer and his little girl. It's really made me think about how I used to be that little girl, and that is my roots, and I do come from this farming family. Obviously, as you get older and you grow up and you move on and you do different things, but it just really kind of brought home to me my roots and where I've come from, and really this is a lot of the energy of this rune. Also, when I was back there, my mother was dealing with a bereavement of her auntie, and there was a lot of discussion about inheritance and everything, and I just thought, this is just so Othala. And then just thinking about what's going on in wider society. We've had the general election within this runic half month, and this rune is about communities, and this is also and communities and countries. So I think everybody's been thinking about who they wanted to be in charge of this country. Now, if we go back to the old feudal society, there would be a noble who would be in charge of that estate, and that noble would be responsible for the good of the land, and also the good of the people who was sustained by that land. And obviously we've moved away from that now into a supposed democratic society, And so really, the person in charge represents that kind of figure of that noble who is in charge of looking after the community and society and the country as well. And the word connected with this rune is Odal, which means nobility. And in this we see that this rune is connected with Odin, because particularly in the later heathen period, Odin was connected with nobility, whereas Thor was more the god for the common man. Now, this is probably a construct of society, but so in older times, that noble would have been in charge of making sure that everything prospered. So I really feel that there's been so much energy around this runic half month, both in my life and also in society as a whole, and also just thinking about some of the issues that were coming up in the general election. It made me really cross this whole dementia tax thing. We're not going to get political, don't worry, but again, that's all tied in with inheritance. Because I think it's a basic human right, which is ancient, that somebody has the right to work hard in their life, to build up their material possessions in order to leave it for their children. And as you can see, this is a concept which is absolutely ancient. So for somebody to try and take that away, to me, seems absolutely criminal. So I won't go on too much, but just going back to the shape again. It's enclosed, isn't it? It's an enclave, and it's an enclosed space. So it's also about being part of that family, being part of that clan, being part of that tribe, that community. So that kind of looking after each other within that, and you're on the inside and everybody else is on the outside. So there's so many energies that about this rune which have really been brought to the forefront during this runic half month. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen next with Dargars coming in tomorrow. So so that's me. That's what I got to say about Othala or Odal.
Very interesting. And as you were talking about your experiences of Othala, I was thinking, which I don't know why, but it hadn't kind of clicked before, that last week I had a rune reading. And there was a lot of a lot of the reading had to do with ancestors and things that I had to do, and connecting to those ancestors. And I haven't listened to the reading again, but I do remember really clearly Othala being present in the reading in about 3 different stages of the reading. Some of the reading was conducted with bones as well, which is as you mentioned, ancestors and part of the DNA. Gaber was part of it as well, which is part of the support of the the shape. Ingles was another rune that was kind of part of the reading. So it has been really active.
It has.
Perhaps I have noticed it a lot more than I have noticed it in any of the other months.
It has been really strong. And I remember when we were now these was particularly strong for us. We really kind of noticed the energies last year, didn't we, of Hargal, now these and Isa. But then since that period, this runic half month, it has literally been so strong. I've just been going, that's Othala, that's Othala, this is Othala. It's just been really strong. So what's going on astrologically?
And astrologically. Astrologically, well, last week we had the full moon in Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, mutable fire sign. So there was a lot of creative energy, and I think it really tied in so well with your workshop. Shæryn just had a workshop over the weekend,
and that was the other thing, community. I kind of brought together a little group, a little community. So I was thinking even that was relevant.
Exactly. And I mean, still, even though we don't have a full moon this week or a new moon or anything like that, we still have significant aspects. One of which, to mention that fire energy again, we have a grand trine in fire, which involves the North Node in Leo the planet Uranus in Aries, and Saturn in Sagittarius, and they're all like in really close orb to each other. So the North Node and Uranus are at 27 degrees and Saturn is at 24 degrees. So it's a really, really tight trine in fire sign. And whereas we tend to think about trines as really kind of easygoing, laid back aspects, because the energies flow really well, the planets' energies support each other really well because they're in the same element, so we kind of tend to sit back and let things happen or take things for granted. However, when we have a trine in a fire element, then creativity is really abundant.
Okay.
And particularly, because of the planets that this involves, we've got Uranus, which is thinking outside the box, doing, feeling free, kind of breaking free from the chains of the past and seeing things with, fresh eyes, with a new vision. And sometimes, with Uranian energy, we tend to do things like really quickly and kind of tend to go on impulse about things. But luckily we have Saturn there as part of that trine, which represents structure, discipline, hard work. So what that is saying to me is that, these two planets, Saturn and Uranus, can work really well together to bring about a vision of something that you want to create in a really focused and disciplined way. So whereas, for example, Neptune is really idealistic and we really dream about doing things, perhaps we don't, we never get to materialize anything. But we kind of with Saturn there, Saturn is, to me, represents, the power of manifestation. So we've got like Uranus, that energy and that impulse to create.
Can I just ask, were these powers present at the weekend, which has just gone? Because that all sounds really relevant to what happened on my workshop.
Exactly. That's a really good question, actually. Sometimes when we have inner planets, they move a lot quicker than the outer planets. We've got Saturn and Uranus, who which are outer planets, so they move really, really slowly. So this configurations like this trine, it's kind of in place for a few days. It would have been coming into exact kind of contact from the weekend, and Saturn is going retrograde, so it will throw the trine off balance a little bit, but still, it's well within orb. So all those creative kind of juices, if you like, were really available. And also Uranus is about downloading information. It's like things that happen, it's like a light bulb, so we're not expecting an idea to materialize or to come through, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh gosh, I really feel that I need to follow this path. I really feel that I need to explore this. And then the North Node is obviously about that which we are aiming towards. It's kind of like our purpose in life. We're stepping away from the South Node, which feels familiar and we know about it, and we can do it with our eyes closed. But the North Node is a little bit more challenging. However, that is the path that we are meant to be following, and sometimes it feels like really uncomfortable. But it's a nice supportive aspect that if you take advantage of it, if you really use it efficiently and properly, then you can manifest like really good things.
Sounds good.
So
I'd just like to point out that I haven't shrunk, and it's just that we're sitting on an apple tree,
uneven,
and I'm lower down
trunk,
today, so I haven't shrunk since you last saw me. That would never do.
One last thing, have a look at where that fire trine falls on your chart, as always, because that will make it a lot more relevant to what's going on in your chart and in your life. So remember, it's Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, which are the fire signs. So locate those signs in your chart, and that's where the trine will be falling onto. So, you know, just work with those houses, work with the themes of those houses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we do
That's all
some
from me.
Galdr?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Right, so while Shæryn
Finds the drum.
fetches the drum, which is just...
Oh, I'll tell you what,
Just
it's
here, very
really
handy.
nice to be using this small drum, because over the weekend
Oh, did you have the big
I
drum?
had the beast drum, and I've realised before I run my next workshop in October, I seriously need to build up my arm muscles, because my arm felt like it was going to fall off drumming that for 10 minutes.
Or maybe you need to have like a tripod or something
Yeah,
to prop
I
it
don't
on.
know.
Or...
Just need to build those arm muscles, I think. I'll be doing press-ups until October. Right then, okay, so we're going to chant it as Odal, the old Norse name, and see where we go with that. Okay, cool.
was weird. It just felt like time slowed down so much, and I felt like it was coming out so slowly, almost as if it felt as if you were falling back into some
going back, slipping back. It was I was having that as well. It was very, very strange. There was nothing sparky or exciting about that, wasn't it? It was very, very slow, very, very solid, and it was almost like going back in time. And then something really weird started happening to me towards the end. It was like I was having visions, like ancestral memories coming through. I was like looking out of the fen, like the water in the fen. It was like I was getting images, like from previous ancestors. It was very strange, and that kind of thing happened to me once before when. Because I live sort of right on the edge of the levels, and when it flooded a few winters back, it was just like everywhere was water, which would have been what the fen, how the fens were, obviously before they were drained, which is where my ancestors come from. And as I looked at it, it was almost like there was something sort of triggering an ancestral memory, and it was very strange. It was like I was getting visions coming through, but it was like kind of slipping back in time, isn't it? Kind of accessing the past. It was strange.
It's totally different from what I have experienced before. It almost like the words almost didn't come out of my mouth.
It was like
really
just strange. Right down,
right
into a hole. It was a strange one. Anyway. I don't know what to say now. It's like, but so I suppose we better finish here. Wrap it up. It's getting a bit nippy now.
It is.
Time to head to the pub, I think. We don't go to the pub very often.
No, we don't.
And thank you for joining us, and hopefully you've had some. You've been able to notice some Odal energy at work, and we're going to be back around the solstice time, I guess.
Really powerful time.
For Dargars.
I'm really looking forward to that.
A completely different energy to this one. It's going to be interesting to see what that brings in over the next few weeks. Very interesting.
Very interesting.
So thanks for watching.
Thank you for joining us.
Please do subscribe. And check out our podcast. We need to podcast this one, don't we?
We need a podcast for this one.
Yeah, we do.
Give us a thumbs up. And
AstroRunicast.
AstroRunicast.com.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Okay then.
Have a great one. Bye.
Bye.